For the first time ever, we're putting together all of the information and knowledge that I have gleaned over 38 years of animal training. I set out to really try to educate the horse world about positive reinforcement, how it works, and how to utilize it and embrace it, because I know it's really powerful and kind of incredible. I'm Shawna, and what I do is positive reinforcement training. Whether it is a competitor who's at the highest level, I've worked with Olympians in show jumping and dressage and other Olympic level riders, or you just like to go out and visit your horse once a week. It's really for everybody. When we talk about traditional training, technically it's called negative reinforcement. Positive reinforcement, on the other hand, means we're adding something to the equation, which increases the frequency of behavior. You can expect to learn the foundation work, the pieces that are going to really change your horse's emotional state. It's really going to change the relationship you have with your horses. This is science. The very first thing we're going to teach you is how to teach your horse manners related to being hand-fed. Every time we feed our horses, we're reinforcing things that the horse thinks are important. The science behind it is already in action. So the more we learn about it, the better we can be as partners for our horses. People think that you can't do this with riding. That's only for groundwork. And that's just not true. This is such an excellent tool. This brings something where what you're getting is a horse who is invested in the training and the outcome of the training. Because we put something in it that the horse values, that the horse likes, they become invested in the training. And that's a game changer. When you're talking competition, that is the game changer. I will always share stories that will tie the science to something that you can relate to. Trailer loading or things at the highest performance level. I don't want to teach you to follow these steps. I want you to think and be able to problem solve your way through all the things that come later. And that starts with helping you to understand the science. All of it can be addressed with the positive reinforcement. If you are interested in creating a better partnership with your horse, if you want to have a happy athlete who enjoys performing and going to shows, or anything in between, then this is probably something that is really going to speak to you. We're going to start with a foundation, and then we're going to continue to add and add and add. So I'm so excited about sharing it with you.
Hi, and welcome to Equine Voices. My name's Ronnie, and tonight's interview is with Shawna Corrin Karrasch. I hope I pronounced that right. I'm terrible at pronouncing names. So I'm just going to bring her in, and she can explain what it is she does and how she started on her journey of working with horses. So here we go. Hi, Shawna, and welcome, and thank you so much, first of all, for joining me tonight. We had a few technical glitches, so that's why we're a bit 10 minutes late. But off you go. If you'd like to introduce yourself and just explain who you are and what it is you do.
Okay, Ronnie, thank you. And it's lovely to be here. It is so you got my name right. Yep, Shawna Karrasch is my name. And I didn't start with horses. I started with marine mammals. And so that's a very different journey and a very different way to come into the horse world. And I think in a lot of ways, I look at the best side of that because I came in and just thought, everything was done with positive reinforcement. And all the marine mammals, they got all their food each and every day, regardless of what they did or didn't do. So our thing was to make sure that we made it fun. And we made it where it's something they wanted to do. And they were excited to find out what the humans were going to do today. And so I didn't come in having to undo a lot of stuff because I came in without a horse background. I came in as a positive reinforcement trainer. Now, that was about 28 years ago now. So it's a long time ago. And it is, I've learned so much since then. But really, what I did is I took the positive reinforcement training to the horses. I started first looking into it in probably 1993. And then in 1994, really started working with horses, got a horse, decided to set out and figure out how it was done. So it's a long road to hoe since then. Because you think about way back then, nobody knew anything about positive reinforcement. You didn't have Facebook groups. You didn't have Facebook, but I was one person out there saying this is really important. And I naively thought, oh, the horse people are going to be so excited when they find out about positive reinforcement because it's so effective. And that's what I thought they would do. And that's not quite been what I've experienced. But the tides are changing. It is got groundswell movement that's really taking hold. People are starting to understand it. And while I started with the highest level of riders, and very talented riders. BZ Madden is really gifted and soft when it comes to applying traditional training. And so I that's where I started. And then I went and started working with all sorts of with everybody. I realized this isn't just for Grand Prix show jumping. This is for, injections and you're getting started and all the pieces in between. So really kind of changed the topography of that and really started working with more people who were interested more in their, recreational kind of situations. And then now kind of coming full circle back to really now that it's taken hold in parts of the horse world, I think the frontier that we really need to conquer now is the show world and figuring out how can we do it with positive reinforcement being first, with the horses well-being being above showing and the show accolades that come with it. So that's where I am, and that's kind of a little nutshell of how I got to where I am.
So, do you want to tell us about your horses in your life? So, I know a little bit, obviously, what I've seen on Facebook from Mint, and he was a special horse in your life. Would you like to tell us a little bit about him?
Yes, I when I first started with John and BZ Madden. So BZ Madden, that's where. So when I came out of the horse world, and I thought I just want to figure out how it's done, and then somehow I got in line with working with BZ and John Madden. And BZ is considered one of the best horse people in our country for sure. She's very soft as riders go and professional riders, and horses love her, and she doesn't have to get after a horse to get things done. And she picks horses who already like their job. So that's where I first started. Well, they had two young horses. One was 6 months old and one was a yearling. And so while I worked with all the show horses and the, different situations, the two young ones were there all the time. So the two young ones became, uh, for lack of a better word, are guinea pigs. You know what I mean? They're the ones that learned everything with positive reinforcement who didn't have traditional training. So Minty and George were the two. And Minty is the one that was with me for so long. And he just in June had to put him down. He was 28 years old and he had a stroke. And I mean, we didn't do the MRI and find out, but it was pretty clear. He became ataxic and wibbly wobbly and seemed to lose vision in an eye. And his quality of life had really changed because while he hadn't been sound for a while, you'd still watch him play like with Henley. And he'd go out there, here I come, here I come. And he'd run, and I knew that he still had that going on for him. And it had gotten to the point where he wasn't doing that. And it's always that hard decision. You can see that it's their time, that this quality of life isn't the same, but it's so hard to say goodbye. So, but he was with me from way, way, way back. So when I first went from John and Beezy's to go out and do demos many, 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 decades ago, really, to go out and do demos and teach people, it was Minty and George were the two ones that were there. So Minty, as I watched him come along through all that, and he did all his under saddle work was positive reinforcement to the point where even Olympic dressage rider one time said, I was working with her just before she was going to the Olympics in Sydney, and she watched Minty just being Minty, and she said, oh, I'd love to ride this horse. He was a thoroughbred who had learned to collect and all the things through positive reinforcement, but you could see it was very different and very proper when he was doing it himself. So he came through all that, ran that whole gamut, and watched horses come and go all the way up through. I mean, I had Murray, who was an off the track thoroughbred, and he was a troubled little soul. He's a more recent horse, but Minty was there through all of those. And then my most recent horse now is Henley, and Henley is 2 years old, and she's really the horse I see that's going to stay in the footprints. That is going to follow in his footprints. Who has big shoes to fill, big footprints to fill. So I'm really excited about that. And I look when I would look at Minty and Henley side by side, I would think, Minty, you were her age. She came to me as a yearling, and I would think, Minty, you were her age when I started working with you. And then to see this whole generation in between. So it's been a lot, and it makes me just a touch. It's a sad thing and a good thing. It's sad not in a way that he had a wonderful life and he taught so many people so much, but especially me. He touched my soul.
I know I can see that in your face. I can see the love and the affection that obviously we love our horses, but that comes through pretty clear, Shawna, how much she thought about him, and so sometimes I pick up on energy, and when people are talking about their animals, so please forgive me if this is not the same horse, but what I'm getting is I know he was a big horse, um,
Mm.
but there's a strength with him, but also a gentleness. Now I don't mean gentle in the feminine gentle. It's a firm gentle, and he stands proud, and I can feel his energy, and it's almost like just wrapping himself around you now as you're talking about him, and he very much wants you. So again, please forgive me if you don't feel this is for you, and I'm sorry if I'm going to make you cry,
Oh, it's all
but
for your
he
good, though.
he wants you to know that he's with you, and he's with your work. He helps with your work, but also with you, the horses. He helps them understand if they're feeling a little bit unsure to refocus and connect with their own energy. He helps them to bring their energy back to themselves. Um, and I'm also getting told to say to you. Um, I will say this normally if I get stuff that's personal, I won't, obviously, we're live, but he wants to reassure you that you did everything that you possibly could, and he heard the words that you spoke as it was his time to leave. Sorry, I didn't know I was going to be saying that tonight, but I have to
That's
give it as it comes.
it.
And he says that with love, but his chest is very proud of himself, but also of you. um, and he sees what's ahead of you that you can't see, and he's proud of that. So surprises are coming your way in the most beautiful way. So I apologize for making you cry, um,
No.
but it's given with the love that's come.
And I totally, I will. I could cry when he was even here still. You know what I mean? I just love him so much. It's so much power, and he was always a very gentle old soul. Even as a young little guy, he was an old soul. So him kind of taking in the world and watching the world. He wasn't busy being full of himself. He was busy watching the world and the people around him. And so that's very much how he was. And I love him to pieces. So I love that he's still here and keeping. I kept when he would be there, the two generations, and seeing Minty and Henley, and I would say, "You gotta help her, help her know what to do, help her to know what's next. Please guide her through the
so
next
that's
parts of her life."
so hopefully that's confirmation that he heard you then. Yeah, and
Yes.
he's just answering your thoughts. But let's go on to something else now.
No, no,
So,
and I don't. To me, tears aren't to be pushed away, and it, it's not always a bad thing. There are emotions that come, and they're good and they're bad, and but it's all there. So I think they just need to be lived. So
yeah.
don't apologize for a second for
Okay. Thank you.
that.
Thank you. So Henley is the new horse. So tell me how far. So what have you been doing so far?
Well, she is. I'm also going to tell you, she's my first mare that I've owned. I've always just had geldings, not because I picked them out and thought I need a gelding. It's just what came into my life. And so she came in, and she is a smart or a smart mare, and she Jessie who bred her. She's a very small breeder. She breeds one. This year she bred two horses, but last year she didn't breed any. She doesn't have a lot. She just has one or two that she works on through the year. And so when Henley was born, I had helped her with a horse who was a horse who kind of found herself in a really confusing situation. She'd become dangerous. It was a horse she had raised and knew what she was like, and she wasn't being like that. So she got herself in a she didn't get herself there. People got her there, but she was in a bad place, and I helped her with her horse, and on the phone we just did it. And then when Henley was born, she said this one is a lot like the other horse who's still here. Now I'm with Jesse, and I get to see this horse all the time. And the and she said she has a personality a lot like that one, which is a lot of personality. But I love that. I love a big personality, and I love them to be who they are and what they want to do. And I don't want to lose that, but I also want to teach her to work with me, So she is super smart, and she keeps me on my toes. She is not, she's delightful, and she's funny, and she's bold, and she's brave, and she is curious to no end. She just thinks the world is full of entertainment. And we took her and as a 2-year old, and then Santino on a trip to go to something called Equitana. And Equitana they had it here in the United States, and it was down in Kentucky Horse Park. And we took the two of them. It was really only their second time off the farm in a working situation. The first time she had traveled commercially, but for her and him to go to Equitana, it's a raucous place. And she, first they're just taking it all in. By day two, she's kind of day three, particularly, she's starting to think this is just fascinating. You could see it in her face. Like she's like, I just want to go for a walk and see stuff. And so she's very smart and very much, she's very optimistic. That's what I feel about her. She just looks at the world with goodness, as opposed to looking at the world with trepidation and suspicion or fear. And she's really, I'm excited for where we're going to go and what we have ahead of us too.
So she's more open to experiences rather than sort of closed off.
Very
Yeah.
much so. She she's pretty sure the world's here for her. I mean, that's what it feels like. Like this is all for her benefit, and it's not. It's also in a very kind, sensitive way. She would be very much trying to keep peace between different horses. If one was, she got along with every, like different ones I put her with, and she would get along with both of them. But she would try to get them to be together. She's very thoughtful and sensitive and sweet. So as much as she looks at the world and thinks it's all there for her, it's it's in a thoughtful way. It's she's I just love her to pieces. But she is different. She's different than what I've had before.
So let's just go back a few years. So when you worked with the was it the killer whales, wasn't it? You worked with the
Hmm.
whales. So when you transferred what you learnt there, to the horses, did you have to adapt it, or how did that come about?
And that's a good question, because people tend to segregate these things. And I worked with whales, dolphins, sea lions, walruses, otters. So I worked with all different species. But the training is the same training. The principles are the same. This is a science of how we all learn, and whether we're aware of it or not, it's going on with our horses and our dogs and our kids and our sea lions and our, whatever it might be. But it is, but what I've learned, I'd say 50 times more since I've been with the horses. I learned a lot of good technique. I learned a lot of good science. I learned how to create a desire to want to learn, and how to raise criteria. I learned all of those things. But with the horses, I really started to recognize that there's a lot of emotional baggage, that comes with the horses. They come from different places. The marine mammals, as they start, they're all either born there, or um, they were rescues. Like the sea lions, if they were rescued, they couldn't be re-released because they were babies typically, and they had no skills. So they had a new home. So they didn't. All the animals I worked with were had been there for so long, and they just had one continuous, trajectory. And they had lots of experience with trainers around them. It just was very different. When I started working with horses, they would come in and they would have different backgrounds, and you would see them being more worried about things, or you'd see transformations, or what happens when you work with them and then you don't work with them. And it was just all very, very different. And so I've learned so much more about really the emotional component. While I took it for granted, I thought everybody, no, everybody thinks about emotions, that who doesn't, that's what I thought. And then I realized a lot of people don't, they haven't been taught to think like that. And I think it's the nature of where horses have served us, in our lives, as they've been war horses, and they've been transportation, and they've been, a lot of things that haven't really afforded. I think sometimes people would have had to make decisions that would be hard because, you couldn't say, but how is, Binky, whatever the name might be, they couldn't do that. They needed them to plow the fields, and they needed that. So I think as we've come along now, there are kind of our pets. They're large pets, and we may be showing and doing business things with them, but we can still have amazing relationships with them, even doing those things. But I think it's kind of been newer for people to stop and slow down and raise awareness of what these sentient beings are capable of, and what kind of relationships we can have, and what kind of damage sometimes we unintentionally can be doing. So I think all of those things have been something that's changed. But in me, it has raised my awareness about horses and horse people and what needs to be done to help them.
Okay, that's yeah. I understand what you're saying, because we've been obviously horses have baggage, but we have a hell of a lot more baggage.
Yes.
So they have their own baggage and they have ours on top of it. And my limited, I want to say very, very, very limited. I might have a horse and I do this kind of work, but my limited experience with horses it's yeah, it's the tiniest. What you think you know, in a few months' time, you know something else, and um, yeah, it's fascinating. It's fascinating, and how you can't separate the human and the horse element. It comes together as one, and the influences and impacts that we have on them is far far bigger than we realize. And anything that you can do to engage with that beautiful animal and try and interact with them, to me, is an amazing tool. Now, my limited understanding of clicker training, on target training as you call it, I used with my own mare, and I had quite a few hurdles to get over. Basically, I'd lost my nerve to get back on my horse, but there was other things going on with her. But that was my side of the deal. And I needed to get over this, but I wasn't always in a financial position to get external help. So I started to use clicker training, and I loved it because, like you said, it doesn't just help with things on the ground. It helps with when you're riding. And my little goal, which I still look back at and I still think it was amazing, was just to get Toots to come up to a barrel and to stand there so I could basically just put my leg over, leg off, leg over, leg off, and then progress to just maybe sitting on her. I mean, this went over months, Sean. I'm talking months. It shouldn't have done, but it did. And I also had a friend that helped me with my mind, because when you've got a mental block, it doesn't matter how much somebody helps you. If there's a mental block there, you've got to deal with that, which is yourself first. And she helped me big time with that, but combined with the clicker. So Toots understood what I was asking. So it might not have been the correct way, if there is a correct way, but she understood what I was trying to relay to her. And in the end, what she did was she'd walk up to the barrel and she'd look at me, and I'd get on her. And that's how I got back on my horse. And that's with clicker training, and I still use it, and I practice clicker training to get her to back up. Now, to me, it wasn't just a simple back up is one instruction. The first thing was to slightly relax the neck, The second one was to take a step back. The third one was to relax the neck and take a step back. And then the next clicker lessons were to do that with just a slight touch on her chest. And then it progressed to just a hand maneuver. So that was like lots of different steps, but then it all rolled into one. And she still does that. And she moves to the side just from a hand signal. And she still remembers that.
Mm-hmm.
So it was, for me, it was a friend because it was just me and my horse, and we played, and yeah, I just had so much fun with it. I had you know, the hula hoops that you can buy with
Mm-hmm.
like little beads in and they make lots of noise.
Yeah. Yeah.
She had she had a thing about having a bridle on because I sent her away for some training and with all the good intentions, but it wasn't really right for her. So I had to get her over having a bridle on. And so I bought this hula hoop, which was like a few pounds, and basically used to touch it on her side and cluck her, and then touch it and then make the noise, and she'd stand. And then once she relaxed, I'd go a little bit further. And in the end, I literally put the hoop over her head and back down. The first time I did it, I got it over her head. It made the noise, and she ran out the field with this hula hoop, going, making all these noises. And then she stopped, turned around, and came back to me, and I took it off. And I was so proud of her. I was so proud of her. But that was with clicker. So
Yeah.
so for me, it made a huge difference to having a horse that wasn't able to be ridden for lots of reasons, but having interaction within a place. It wasn't just, you know, it was occupying their mind.
Yes.
That's
And that and it's huge. And I loved you tapped on a few things there that I think that are really important. And one is I think that because the horses are so large, people get frightened. You know, so if they feel like they can't control every piece, they get worried. You know, you think about when you're driving. You're driving in the car and somebody pulls out in front of you. And a lot of times we get mad. We're not really mad. We got scared. You know, and it comes out in this kind of, in this sideways way. And I think that happens with horses a fair share. They do something not knowing, and then the person thinks they're far too big. And so then they react big, and it kind of, and so it begins. There's a little bit of lack of communication. But one of the things that's huge with the positive reinforcement, whether it's marine mammals or horses, is you're saying, we're gonna come to this together. I'm not gonna make you do anything. And watching your horse have free choice to be able to do things, it's very empowering, and it gives people confidence. You know what I mean? Because you think, okay, I remember early on when I first started doing this, there was a young gal and her trainer that were high in the equitation, children's equitation here in the US, which is that's on a track for to be a professional. It's a big thing for kids to do. And there was a girl and her horse stopped. And so she lost her confidence. Well, then the horse could sense her apprehension and lost his confidence. Now you have two of them going, well, you're not doing it, I'm not doing it. And nobody could help each other in that way because, like you said, you can't just go, just get over it. It's a thing and it's a process. And so she began teaching her horse to free jump. And so she could see my horse actually can jump that. And then and it was her trainer's suggestion. And then her trainer worked with her, and pretty soon she has the horse can go back and forth. And then she put the gal on, said, don't do anything. You're just going to sit there, and called the horse over. So now she's jumping on her horse, but she knows that the horse can do it. She's not commanding this. She's just up there. And it was a nice way for them to find their way back to confidence together and growing past that. So I think it's really important. And I love also that you experimented with it and you took it to the really small steps and thought, well, what are all these little tiny steps? Because it's the best way to bring clarity, and clarity brings relaxation for the horses oftentimes. So I think it was brilliant that you went that way and that you found your way to something that is so fulfilling for both us and for the horses. So I love that.
Thank you. It did. It was just something that I could do because I wasn't able to do anything else at the time, and she still remembers it. I mean, I don't have to do something for ages, and I ask her something, But also, if I'm trying to do something, not so much now, but when I was trying to do something new, and her focus was somewhere else, as soon as she slightly dropped that focus and started to come back to me, although she was still intended to look back out or whatever, I'd cluck her, and then so she'd go, "Oh, that means reward."
Yes.
Um, but my rewards were like the tiniest thing. I mean, it would be like a grain. It got down to be a grain of something, and I'd say to people, she doesn't have to do it, because would you do it for that? And she's a big horse.
Yeah.
So she's doing it because she wants to. If I hadn't done it for a while, um, and then she came in to interact, I'd notice a difference that if she was, because I'm doing it because I want something, I want the food. I'm not really wanting to play, but I want the food. She'd have a different whole demeanor, and it would just feel different. And I'd be going, no, we're not doing it then, because it's the wrong frame of mind. So I'd stop. If she came and wanted to be with me, then that was okay, because she was wanting to play, wanting to interact. And I'd find that she'd follow me up the field. She'd still want to play, because it was fun, and maybe also she was getting the good vibes from me, that that warm glow of just getting on the same page and finding a mutual communication in that way. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, it was an immense help to me, and I only did a fraction of what I could have done with that, but it was still very, very helpful and fun at the end of the day, just
Yeah.
fun.
And I think that's that because I think it's like with the marine mammals too. Everybody, they shouldn't be working for their food. They should be able to get all the food they want. The food becomes a part of it, but when it's done well, it is not all about the food. So positive reinforcement training, like any other training, it can be done poorly as well. So if it is, and it feels like it's all about the food, then there's some piece that's missing there. So really going back and trying to make it more about the fun and the game, and there's kind of some strategery, you can do to create more of that. But you just
Mm,
sounds like you did a great job with it and got right to the crux of it, and really turned it into being fun. And it is not all about the food. It is about the game and the enjoyment of the game, and that's really an important component. And we're really, like, my goal is always to fade the food from each behavior. It doesn't mean I'm fading the food from it forever or from all the pieces. But like, if I've worked on putting the halter on, I don't feel like I have to feed every time I put the halter on. We're going to put the halter on, then we're going to do something else. And pretty soon they're like, I just love the halter. I have endorphins and dopamines come racing through me when the halter goes on. They don't think you owe me. And so I think it's kind of how it's a systematic approach more than people think. It's not just feed them. There are kind of steps to it, which you were doing. You were raising the criteria. You're doing it in small steps. You're raising the criteria. You built upon it. You said, okay, well, if you're going to be a little intense like that right now, then that's okay. That's you can do whatever you want, but that's not the frame of mind I want to work with. And I think all of that was very intrinsically understood by you, as you, like you said, you just began to do it, and you already kind of had the nuances there that were important part of creating the right attitude and the right demeanor about it and the right relationship, really.
thank you, thank you. I don't give some. I don't have to, like you said, I don't actually have to give her food now. But if it's something she's really sort of got over, I'm like, oh yeah, you can have something, and she can have a huge carrot or whatever. I also did with which I found was fun, with traffic cones, and I had traffic cones in a circle. And what I would do was point to one traffic cone, and she would go up and touch it with her nose. And then I would be thinking about the third one, not the next one. And she'd sort of walk to the next one, and she'd be obviously listening to me, tuning in. And then I wouldn't do anything. And then she'd go to the next one, and then I would go, you know. So it was almost like a guess. She wouldn't
Yes.
necessarily go to the first one and the second one, and the third one. She got that it wasn't always going to be that way. And she was just, right, is it this one? No, it's not that one. Is it this one?
Yeah.
um, so that was fun. And then you do like diagonals. But I found it fascinating because I think that, and it also helps me in actually, I'm just thinking now, it might have helped me doing what I'm doing now, because you're connecting on the brain waves, you're connecting to that.
Hmm.
And yeah, it helped with that actually, because you're sort of focusing on that, and you're almost um ignoring what's going on around you, and you just focus on the horse, and then listening to you on an energetic level as well as the visual.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that's so that probably, yeah, I never thought about it like that actually.
Actually, I was as a child. I had abuse in my history, so I am what has been termed I'm hyper vigilant, which means I get little nuances of changes in a room of behavior, and like I can tell if somebody's in a funny mood about something, and it's that hypersensitivity to the
Hmm.
slightest little changes and what's going on, and it helps, when you're training. I always say there's a silver lining, in every cloud, because it really does help me to kind of think you kind of shifted just now. What happened that shifted your thinking? Or and it becomes a two-way street where they get more refined in thinking and paying attention to what I'm communicating, and vice versa. I can kind of go, okay, something is different, or something is good, or something is tough, or whatever it is. So I think it all goes together, really.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So let's talk about you've got some clinics coming up, haven't you? I know, because
Yes.
that's why we're doing this tonight, because it was,
Yes.
otherwise it was going to be afterwards. Would you like to chat a little bit about the clinics?
Yes, we have. So I was in New Mexico, and it was a situation that was um, kind of becoming, more and more difficult for everybody, and so I thought, what, it's time for me to get back out in the world a bit. And so I was talking with Jessie, who I am with now, and she's the breeder of Henley and Santino and lovely horses, and really is a wonderful horseman who had now been embracing positive reinforcement more and more, and has that desire to reach the show world. And so I was talking to her, and we've always talked, and it was just clear that it was time for me to bring Henley, back to her herd, and for us to explore and get out and doing clinics. So now I'm based in Pennsylvania with Jesse, and we are on the road a lot. So taking horses as much as we can. And so this week coming up, we're going to actually leave tonight and drive for a few hours. Then tomorrow we'll finish the journey down to Georgia. And Georgia is in southern United States, just above Florida. So we're heading down there to work with some rescue horses. So this is a private clinic, the first one, because it's somebody who wants to work with her volunteers, her horses, her staff, and to get them utilizing the positive reinforcement with the rescues, which is such a huge and powerful tool to help those troubled souls, to find some safety in their world. So we do that, and then we'll head after that couple days there. We'll go to North Carolina, but we are booking and do a regular weekend clinic with some people there that are, and it's kind of North Carolina by the Tryon area, which is a big horse center. There's a big equestrian center there. But so and then we're still booking and booking and booking things. So we have things coming up. We're right now working on the Northwest. We'll get to the UK, back over to Europe, and doing some things there. So hopefully maybe later next later in the summer, kind of get back that way. So we just need to start getting dates, because there's a lot of interest. It's just organizing the dates and getting out there. And my big goal with teaching the clinics is, in the beginning, nobody knew anything. So everything was a brand new clinic. It was brand new people with brand new horses. But now you kind of have a mix. Some people are still new to it, and they're figuring it out and embracing it, which I love, because that means it's a new generation of people. But
Mhm.
some people have been doing it, and now they're wanting to refine their skills. They're like, "Yep, I've been doing it, but I've hit these, kind of got stuck here in these places." And really just trying to help people get it right, because as I said, you can do positive reinforcement wrong just like any other training. And I think a lot of times people get excited about the positive reinforcement, and then they go forward, and they kind of miss some pieces. So now I have a horse who's too excited, or a horse who's too, whatever it might be. So really trying to help people stay out of those potholes, along the road that can slow them down or have it go wrong. So while it's exciting to have so many people doing it, it also means there's a lot of people doing it that haven't really necessarily ironed out some of the pieces. And so sometimes people have seen it and been like, I'm not going to do that. So, I don't do clicker training because look what it's got this person. And it just to me means, okay, we just need a little more clarification. And, it's such a big push in the beginning. And now it's gotten some momentum, but it's ready for the next big push to get it to a broader audience of horse people. So that's what the clinics are about. But it's really, I want to meet people wherever they are. So in one clinic, I might have a brand new person and a person who's doing under saddle stuff and is rather experienced. So it doesn't matter to me. We're gonna deal with all of it because I think it helps everybody to see the new person can see where it can go to. Because if they're just the new person now, all those new clinics, they go, yes, yes, we've got the start, then they wouldn't know what to do. And there probably was one me back then. So now we have more resources and people are further along. But it's really, I want everyone to go home at the end of the clinic and think, I know what to do. I know what steps I'm going to take next. I want them to have a plan moving forward. And it's very exciting to be out there and be helping people and helping horses to embrace it and understand it.
And that's brilliant. That's really, I mean, that's such a lovely thing to do and a lovely skill and a gift to share with people. But it also shows when you're working with in that way, you're highlighting what the horses are reflecting back. So you're highlighting the small eye movements, the small ears. Where are the ears, and how they're feeling. So you're creating a place where they can see that and notice that, and then change it, like you're saying, with positive reinforcement. So you're giving them a gift that they can help not just themselves, but the horses. And especially this confusion as well, it helps. I mean, I might not, as I said before, necessarily do it the correct way to if you're reading it in a book or something, but my horse was understanding what I was trying to say. And it was almost like, that's what you want. Okay, let's try this again.
Yeah.
Because it's frustration when you're trying, you think you're relaying a message when actually you're giving a whole different story, and the horse is like, I don't know what you're saying to me.
I don't know what language that is.
I
And
know.
yeah, and I think it is really important because it's kind of giving the horse a voice too. Because they're talking loud and clear all the time to us. Whether it's energy, but you watch and you're like, why is your nose look all tight? And people might not notice it, but to me, I go, that's saying something. Now, I've had horses that their noses are always like prehensile little elephant trunks everywhere, and I get that, but that would not be Minty. So if I saw that on Minty, I'd be like, "What is happening?" But they're doing things that are trying to tell us, communication, and if we can slow down and listen to it, we can move together as a unit, as opposed to just moving forward with this lack of communication. I almost think of it like somebody speaking a foreign language. If they come up to me and go, "Hava jab 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 jab," and I'm like, I don't know what you said, and then they're like, "Oh, jab 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 jab," and I'm like, I still don't know, and then they're yelling it at me, and I'm like, I don't. Louder doesn't make it more clear. I still don't know, but I think sometimes that's what we do with horses. We just start doing what we know. We just do more of it, and we're like, but this is what's got them in the first. This is what's troubled them in the beginning. So I think learning to have new tools can only help us to be better with them and to come together and work together. And it's really important to me, and I love being able to point out when I work with somebody's horse and saying, see that, see the look, and there they did this, and they did that, and it culminates into a behavior. But it's the little pieces and the little nuances that were, giving information and helping us to communicate together in what direction to go. And so love when people get a chance to see that and take that away. And like you said, it's not, they're all individuals. So there is no recipe book. I can't go, this is how you do it. Well, it depends. It could be a little of this, it could be a little of that. You can, depends on where the horse is and how they are, and you try something and sometimes you think that's not right, and I'm going to try something else. And I think that it's a dance, and I think to slow down and appreciate the dance is really important.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the fact that you said just because you're shouting louder, I still don't get it. That was funny. That um, as you was talking, again, this is what I was picking up. So Minty was asking me to remind you of the time at the beginning when we used to get so excited when there was improvements, and sometimes he would slow it down because he wanted you to slow down. So his responses would be a little bit slower because he was saying to you, you got to slow this down. The excitement was like, whoa. So this is what he's asking me to relay to you, to remember that when you're
Yeah.
teaching your students, because you can say to them, I know what that place is like because I did that. So
Yeah.
is that correct? Because this is how I'm picking up.
Yeah. When I had Minty and Georgie was a bundle of energy. He gave you too much all the time. There's always too much, Georgie, and he was very distracted. Minty was rather, slow and thoughtful about everything, even as a baby. I mean, at some point, I remember saying to him, "Do you have fun?" Because he was always so good. You know what I mean? He's always so perfectly perfect that, when George was a little precocious and ornery. So, I mean, I know he had fun, but he was more of your slow down and to have their personalities be so different. He was very much, I'm going to slow down and think through it and do it deliberately and do it consistently for from here on out. When Georgie was the what's that? What is very easily distracted. So I could see that, and that would ring true, very true to me with him.
He feels a very, very nice soul, very nice energy, very
Yeah.
grounded, very grounded. Um, yeah, but he says I like to kick my heels too. He liked to kick his. That's what he's just said. I like when I say they say,
Yeah.
it's the
Projection.
yeah, it's the feeling of what they're giving me. And he says I like to kick my heels too. Um, he feels very solid as well. Very yeah, a nice horse, nice energy, and he's very much around you all the time. And every time you think of him, he's there. It's because he's there. His energy's there, and he wants to say again that he's so proud of. He's proud of you on a personal level, and that's all I'm going to say. He wants to say he's proud, so proud of you on a personal level. Okay, and that's all I'm going to say. You can ask me about that afterwards if you want to, but so there we go. I made you cry again.
But
she's gonna say, God, don't go on with Ronnie because she makes you cry. Oh dear. Is there anything else that you'd like to talk about? Anything else that you'd like to? Anything coming up? I know you've got some clinics, but anything different that's coming
yeah.
up in the future?
Well, we're going to be working on an online course. Got really excited about it because I thought I need to slow down and get some pieces sorted, make sure it's solid. And so we're starting with some of that, but I'm also writing a book. So it's my second book, same publisher, so it's I'm excited to get down what I've learned in the past 20 years since the first book was written. So that's coming up, and you just never know what else is coming up. Life just brings you things and more things than you even know. So I'm sure there will be lots more things coming up, and I'm just open to them, as I move forward. So
Absolutely. Well, according to Minty, that's what he said earlier. There's things coming up that you can't see, and they're
yeah,
exciting and lovely things,
good.
which is great. Um, so if there's anything else you want to talk about, or are you happy with how the interview's
Yeah,
gone?
yes, I really am. I think it's been quite lovely and kind of a surprise, a sweet surprise to be hearing from Minty. And I think
Oh,
that and I have a podcast that's kind of been on hiatus, but it's an instructional clicker training. It's called Equine Clicker 101. And so if you look that up, you find it on, you know, Apple, all the big iPod or podcast things. You can find it, and it takes you step by step through some training things. So if anyone's interested in wanting to learn more, or wanting a little instruction, the kind of way to do that. It's a little different in that manner, but I'll get back to doing that too. But anyway, it's been fabulous. I've just had a great time talking with you and hearing about all you've done too and what you've discovered with the positive reinforcement and the clicker training. It's so powerful, and I love that you're getting out there and sharing it with people, and that it helped you in your relationship with her.
It did immensely, Shawna. Brilliant. So what I'll do is I will add the links to your podcast on this post as well, and I'm going to make this interview into a podcast. And I'll do the same then. I'll send you a copy as soon as it's done. So what I'll do is I'll just pop you out. I don't
Okay.
think we've got any. I'm just looking to see if there's any questions. And then, so if you hang around a minute, then we can chat afterwards. And I'll just say bye
Okay.
to everybody.
Okay.
Okay. Do you want to say bye to everybody?
Yes, I do. Bye, everybody. It's been here with you, Ronnie, and it's just great to be all to have all your listeners here and learning more about the positive reinforcement and the horses and the communication and I will get my way back over to the UK. So you keep your ears peeled.
Okay. Thank you. Great. What a lovely, lovely lady, and so nice of her to join us tonight. I hope you enjoyed that interview. And if you're interested in anything, if you're interested in anything we've talked about, oh, Jane, we just got a message. Hi, Jane. Fab interview. Thank you. Oh, bless you. Thank you, Jane, for watching, and thanks for your comment. Bless you. Jane's my friend. She works with horses. She does healing. She does yeah. So she's going to do an interview one day. So thank you very much. Have a lovely evening. Thank you for stopping on by, and I shall talk to you again soon. Thank you very much, and bye for now.